As we all know, Hell Let Loose has taken a beating by the community lately. I was away for the last update, which was meant to be a bug fixing one, so I decided to check out Reddit and Steam to see what the community thought of it. And I think it's fair to say that what I saw in those two forums was enough to put me off playing that game for a fair old while. But when I fired up Hell Let Loose yesterday, I had an absolute blast playing it, and everyone else seemed like they were having fun as well, which got me thinking, maybe the game's not too bad at the moment, and maybe it's not as bad as is being suggested. So let's get into what's got the forums riled up about Hell Let Loose. I'm sure most of you know this already, but at the start of 2022, Team 17 acquired Hell Let Loose and its intellectual property rights from Black Matter Studios for around 40 million. Now, I'd say Team 17 doesn't have the best reputation, especially after they announced Metaworms in 2022, which was an NFT project that received massive backlash because of course the widespread opinion of NFTs is that they're synonymous with scams and greed. Nonetheless, they acquired Hell Let Loose, set up a new studio and also used external studios to take over the development. And when you spend that kind of money, you clearly want a return on investment, and I've already highlighted that Team 17 isn't exactly the most philanthropic organisation. So naturally, the fear was and is that Team 17 will focus too much on profits and ruin Hell Let Loose in the process. We've seen that happen plenty of times with other franchises. We've already heard Team 17 talk about creating more purchasable in-game cosmetics, which falls well and truly within the microtransaction category for video games. Much more concerning than that though, for core Hell Let Loose fans, is the worry that they'll try and make the game more accessible so that it can appeal to a wider audience, and in doing so will ruin what made Hell Let Loose great in the first place. These fears were certainly not appeased by Team 17's first proper update. Update 14, where they increased running speed, presumably primarily as a step towards trying to reach a wider audience, because as far as I can tell, no one in the community was asking for that change. But irrespective of the sprint speed, Update 14 was just a bit of a mess in general, so the community was certainly getting pretty agitated at this point, and then we got the monstrosity that was Update 15's PC Gaming Show trailer. And that was when the pitchforks really started coming out. It's led to the point where now Hell Let Loose has mostly negative rating for recent reviews on Steam, and from what I've just said, that probably seems justified. But then again, how have I just played and really enjoyed a game that has mostly negative reviews? I should say that Steam has a weird way of reviewing games, because you see mostly positive or mostly negative or whatever on the store page, but when you actually write and read individual reviews, it's would you recommend it or not? And they're two different things. Recent ratings of positive or negative to me imply the current state of the game, whereas would you recommend it brings into discussion where the game might be heading. So if the reviews are seen as positive or negative in its current state, then I'd say Hell Let Loose has been review bombed recently, because I've read through a lot of the reviews and to me it seems like they're primarily being used to send Team 17 a message that the people who have previously purchased Hell Let Loose don't like the direction it's going in. That's not to say there aren't also great points being brought up in reviews by well-established players, because there are, but I'd say the majority of the reviews and social media comments aren't actually talking objectively about the current state of the game, which is far from perfect by the way, but for me, definitely not mostly negative for now. So let's actually get into some reviews here. Like I said, most are talking about the future of Hell Let Loose without addressing the current state of it, but there are some great reviews with a mixture of points that I want to run through. And there are some heavy hitters here as well with a lot of hours in the game, so I should probably state that I'm currently sitting on 832 hours, which I'm not proud of, but it is relatively lightweight compared to this bunch. Kicking things off with a hefty 2,000-houred individual who has a lot of good points as to why he wouldn't recommend the game, but summarizes it with, and I'm quoting here, "The game itself is fine, but declining in quality lately. Still worth checking out, but since all new purchases will now go directly into Team 17's pocket, I absolutely would not recommend paying full price for it." This sentiment is pretty typical for a lot of the reviews. There'll be good points, but also elements that protest the ownership rather than the actual state of the game. And this guy also mentioned something which I want to bring up and I want to touch upon, that Black Matter, the original developers, had their issues, which is an important point because I at least look back on their time with rose-tinted glasses, but the amount of bugs that have been in Hell Let Loose for years at this point is ridiculous. And I also don't know how involved Team 17 were with the decision for them to release the game on console, but I remember Black Matter distinctly saying it wouldn't interfere with the PC development in any way, which, let's be honest, was a lie. But what Black Matter did do really well is they communicated with the community, and while their updates were far from polished, were at least slightly quality tested, unlike Update 14. But I also think that the code they came up with must have been a mess, and the handover to Team 17 would have been a nightmare. I remember once in the patch notes they were saying that Easter eggs were removed to give a performance boost, and if that is the case, then something is seriously dodgy under the hood. Moving on to a mere 1,200 houred individual who says his biggest gripe is they have lowered the skill ceiling to appeal to new players. Game experience and aim used to be everything in this game, and paired with communication it was something beautiful, no longer. And some of this guy's other points were good, but for this, the only meaningful change they've made relating to the skill ceiling as far as I can tell is they've increased the sprint speed. Yes, you can get away with more, you can run across open fields more and run across streets, and speed relative to tanks is a particular issue at the moment. But other than that, I don't think it's made a massive difference, and maybe I've missed something. Please let me know down in the comments if I'm missing some glaring points. But since Update 14, I've pretty much played mostly the same way. In fact, if anything, I actually die more because I overestimate what I can get away with since the speed update. So although to me it looks like Team 17 are heading in the direction of lowering the skill ceiling to appeal to new players, I wouldn't say it's at the stage where it's ruined the game yet. But now we'll get to the big boy. 6,061 hours. This guy has amazing points, which I don't disagree with in any way, but I just wanted to bring up, particularly his points in relation to those that host servers. He says, communities such as mine form the backbone of the broader Hell Let Loose community. We host 6 servers across 3 regions, attract and retain new players, promote the game to our broader audience, and contribute to the game's social fabric. To say I'm disappointed that I cannot elicit answers from Team 17 on the most basic hosting questions is an understatement. And we all should feel this guy's pain, because the community is one of the best things about Hell Let Loose, and it is driven by those that put a lot of time and effort into hosting servers. It is really terrible that Team 17 aren't communicating with these key members of the community, and this guy's negative review is, in my opinion, 100% justified. But to wrap up, the reviews, server hosting aside, are a bit misleading, I reckon. For me at least, if you look at the game just in its current state, there's a few more bugs and a different sprint speed since Team 17 took over, but other than that, it is still a fun game. So if you've been avoiding it based on what the forums are saying, I'd say get involved and enjoy it while you can. Basically, in my opinion, and it is just my opinion, let's take it easy here guys, the current state of the game is being depicted as worse than it actually is because it's getting transfused with people's opinions of where the game's going. And that was my main point of this video really, just to shine a spotlight on the current state of the game without bringing in baggage of what the future might hold. Now with that being said, I'll close this video off with my thoughts on what the future might hold and what I think they need to do to save the game. Being frank, Hell Let Loose future does look fairly bleak. I don't think the studios now working on the game have got a handle on the code. There must be some management issues as well for that Update 15 trailer to have been given the green light and for Update 14 to have been released in such a bad state. After the Update 15 trailer released, the only right step was for them to apologise and focus on fixing the Update 14 issues, which is what they kind of did, or at least they attempted to do it. I do think they missed a big opportunity here though to actually get back into our good books. So I actually quite like the new sprint speed. I know it's sacrilege to say that, but I actually do quite like it. I don't like the lack of inertia, so you can zigzag all over the place, but the straight line sprint speed I like, with the exception of being able to catch up so easily with tanks. That being said, against my personal interests, which hopefully clears me of any bias, they should have said that they're lowering the sprint speed by something like 5%, simply as a solid way to show the community they're listening to feedback. I'm sure there'd still be grumblings that the sprint speed is too high, even though compared to other similar games, it's not massively different, but have at least allowed them to show that they're willing to sacrifice a slightly wider audience for the wants of the core community. Their acceleration change I thought was good, although obviously when you get up to speed it makes no difference, and they did tackle dolphin diving, but to make a proper impact I don't think they needed to revert back to the old sprint speed, but I do think they needed to reduce it. Also, as I've said, communication is so key, and it's what Black Matter did really well, and Team 17's communication has been poor. If they told us they're finding it challenging getting to grips with all aspects of the game, here's a list of bugs that they're trying to fix by this date, but they're not sure if they'll be able to get all of them done by then, I think we'd have been a lot more forgiving. I think we could have all kind of understand that situation. Handovers are often pretty tricky. So for now, they need to be, in my opinion, really proactive with their communication, especially to those hosting servers, and they need to solely focus on fixing current issues before attempting to add anything else into the game. If they're sticking with their July date for the new game mode, it'll be a travesty. They need to take a breath, delay some of the things they've got planned, and just work on the current state of the game. Unfortunately, if I was a betting man, I'd say they're probably just going to plow on. I really hope they don't, but we're just going to have to see. And one last thing I'll say is, I understand the use of reviews to protest the direction of a game, or just to get a message across to the developers. I'm not sure it's the best thing to do, because obviously it does hurt the game, but then again, I don't know how to get some of these corporations to listen unless you hit their wallet. So I'm pretty mixed about what's going on with Hell Let Loose at the moment. On the one hand, I don't like how everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. I'm guilty of doing it, but everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, bringing down Hell Let Loose, because I think it's putting off a lot of players who might otherwise enjoy the game. But I also completely understand why people are doing it, especially as there's very few ways I can see to actually get Team 17 to listen. And I'll end it there. Hopefully I haven't pissed off too many people. I'd love to hear your guys' comments down below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and also think about subscribing. Cheers guys.